Hey friends, today I'd like to talk a little bit about the characteristics of fascism. Feel free to intertwine fascism and totalitarianism and dictatorships. It all works together exactly the same way, okay? What I want to do is tell you a little bit about what to look for if you want to see if a nation is maybe trending toward fascism, or we take a look in the past and we see, oh, this is what Mussolini did that helped to create fascism. This is what Hitler did to copy Mussolini's fascism. Oh, kind of interesting, right? That way we can end cycles that do occur in history. Now, I'm not saying history is completely cyclical. Sometimes it goes in waves and stuff like that. But we can learn from mistakes. More importantly, we can learn from the good stuff. When we do things that are right, boy, we should always do those. And one of the things that was right was defeating fascism. America. Seriously. We won. And one of the things we want to make sure is that fascism can never come back. It's not going to come back here. But what I'm talking about is anywhere around the world. We want to avoid this style of government because of its disdain for human rights and things like that, which we will go into. So we're going to use regular terminology so that we all understand what the heck I'm talking about when we look into the growth of dictatorships and fascism. First thing to look for is extreme nationalism. Nationalism, patriotism, with a whole bunch of racism added. It's patriotism on steroids. It just goes too far. It's us to the exclusion of everyone else, and it can be extremely dangerous. Patriotism is fine, but nationalism is when you start to pass laws to hurt other people and you exclude other people. So that's one sign. The next is an utter disdain or hatred for human rights. If you imprison people without trial and you don't give them the benefits of habeas corpus or due process, this is completely unacceptable. And this is what dictators do. They surveil people, they take away their rights, they imprison them, and then they execute them. That's just what they do. And it is really one of the first things that they do once they seize power. All right. Next, using your enemies as scapegoats, trying to find someone else to hate in order to unify your own people. You got to be careful about this. Now, this can happen in a completely natural way, like if a political party in the United States says, boy, we really dislike terrorism, so let's use anti-terrorism as a political tool to pull our people together. Or, hey, I really think that I'd like the environment to be taken care of, so I want to have some Green New Deal or something like that. Things like that are completely normal. It's when you take a group of people and you blame them for all your problems and you attack them. That's going obviously a little bit too far. When militarism goes too far, there's nothing wrong with having a military. We have an amazing military in this country. By the way, who has the largest air force in the world? Yes, the United States. Who has the second largest air force in the world? Yes, the U.S. Navy. All right, so we're pretty awesome. But here's the deal. If you take it too far and the military takes over, also one thing to look for, if the leader starts to parade around in some kind of an interesting looking military type of outfit, sometimes with plumes and things like that, don't vote for them. All right, next, sexism. When a dictator, and they always do, when they say a woman's place is here, a man's place is here, you got to be a little bit leery of that, right? We want to avoid places that say won't let women become doctors. Talking to you, Iran. Okay, The other thing that you should know is when a dictator controls the mass media. You have state-run media. For instance, Kremlin radio is now called Sputnik radio. Those of us in the know realize that that is still Vladimir Putin's radio outlet, and they have a heck of a lot of influence in the United States, strangely enough. When you control the media, like Vladimir Putin does, there's no free internet in Russia. There's no free internet with Xi in China. We have a relatively free internet. Let's keep it that way. Controlling the mass media gets your word out and won't let someone else speak. All right? That's the elimination of the free press. We really, really, really need that. Once you control the media, then you control how people think, and then you have complete control over them. All right. Next, there has to be an obsession with national security, bordering on unbelievable paranoia that a boogeyman of some kind is going to come in and do something bad, destroy your culture. They want to come in, they hate you because of your, freedoms or something. You got to be leery about that. Next, religion and government get entwined. If you can do that, it's extremely powerful. That is why in the United States we don't let that happen. Right? We have the freedom of religion in our country. We do not have an established religion. We have religions that have greatly influenced our country, yay, but you don't have to be a part of those religions if you don't want to be. But darn it, you're free to be involved in it if you want to be, and good. You should be able to be in a religion if you want to. Conversely, religion shouldn't take away your rights. All right. Next, corporate power is protected. Fascism used to be called corporatism, but it didn't sound nearly as cool. And what you have is a dictator who says, listen, rich oligarchs and CEOs and whatever, if you let me come to power, I will stifle the unions. I will get rid of minimum wages. I will do all sorts of these things. And boy, are we going to have a whole bunch of new military contracts. That's what's going to happen. Right? Next, I just kind of played into that. What you do is you attack labor. Like you get rid of things like unions so that workers don't have a say. If the workers don't have a say, then you can control them. All right. Next, there has to be a disdain, which is another way of saying like a hatred for intellectualism and the arts. They go hand in hand. And so you're like, hey, Poindexter, I don't like your science. Or, that's not art. A donkey with a paintbrush attached to its butt could do that. No. An advanced civilization cherishes intellectualism, universities, scientists, right? Teachers. Advanced societies do that. Advanced societies also produce advanced art, music, theater, all of that good stuff. And we should foster this because this is an indication of a society that's doing exceptionally well. All right. Next, we have an obsession with crime and punishment, often corresponding with mass numbers of people being incarcerated and either disappearing or being sent to Siberia, to the gulags, or something like that. Next, we have cronyism and corruption. Government corruption is going to happen, but when you have unbelievable corruption to the point where you're like, well, this is the most corrupt thing I've ever seen since yesterday. All right, if you have something like that, or if you have cronyism, is when you put people who support you in positions not because they're good at it, but because you want to give them a favor, or you put like your best friend, you make them in charge of the Secretary of Interior or something like that. In a dictatorship, in a totalitarian state, this is the type of thing that happens. And it's because the dictator doesn't trust regular people. There's a small cadre of people that they trust, and they don't trust anybody else. All right. Lastly, elections are fraudulent in dictatorships. Not always the first one. For instance, Hitler was elected into office essentially through the Reichstag and then appointed chancellor. And then when Hindenburg died, there was a chancellor-president mix-up Führer type of a thing that happened. But after that happened, like every dictator, Hitler made political opposition illegal. So you could vote for a county dog catcher as long as they were a Nazi. There might be two Nazis running for it, and you got to choose between them. Right? That's what happened in the Soviet Union. Right? You got rid of people and parties who were a threat and who might take away your power. We have to avoid that. We have to avoid all of this. Again, how do we do this? The Constitution. Write down the rules and then apply them. It's really quite simple. We're not going to have a dictatorship in the United States because we have rights. They're written down, and crazy people like us tell crazy people like you what your rights are. That's why we're not going to have a dictatorship, as long as we're all paying attention. All right? Hey, be healthy, be safe.